Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. We have Andrea Stella, the team principal of McLaren. Let's listen what he says.
Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us what has changed in the way McLaren will go racing since Monza?
Monza was an important stage of this 2024 season. First of all, reviewing Monza, we were very happy to see that we had a competitive car even in Monza, which last year was one of the most difficult and is a very different track compared to what we had in Zandvoort, in Hungary, where we were strong. And we were P1, P2 on the grid. So definitely good news from the front of performance. And then the next question was like, oh, this is relevant for the championship as well, because definitely we look like we can be in the battle, and we can be in the battle for both championships. So I think it was important after 2/3 of the season to see that McLaren is there and McLaren want to win both championships. After Monza, definitely we took a look at the first lap with Lando and Oscar. We checked what we could have done better, because if you enter a chicane in the first lap P1, P2 and you exit in P1, P3, then I'm not sure we had done the interest of the team. But doing the interest of the team is our main objective, our main principle. So it was once again a very positive, constructive conversation. I think each of us, myself included, we raised our hand, we said, I think here we should have done this better. We put all this learning together, and this will be the foundation for the way we approach this final part of the season. And then the next topic we covered is how are we actually going to win both championships, considering that at McLaren we have the luxury, the very good situation that we have two number one very competitive drivers.
But what's changed? Have papaya rules been tweaked?
Right, so let me first clarify these papaya rules, because it looks like they had a lot of resonance, but actually papaya rules is just a quick way for a race engineer to remind our drivers that we don't want to see any contact between the two papaya cars, we race respectfully and no risks. Like the whole topic about how we chase the championship is not covered by the papaya rules.
So it's an approach, if you like. It's a way of thinking.
That is an approach to the close fighting between the two papaya cars. In terms of what is changed is that by looking at the classification after 2/3 of the season, we see that definitely we are in the quest for the Constructor Championship, and we are in the quest for the Drivers' Championship. And we acknowledge together with Lando and with Oscar that now Lando is in the most favorable position. So if we want to try and give it a go, we should try and support Lando. We will do this when and if necessary, especially in those 50-50 calls. They will now more naturally end up in Lando's territory, and see if by doing so we can make this quest in the Drivers' Championship even more realistic. And then we will reassess in a couple of races and we see where we are.
So what I'm hearing is, if there's a 50-50 battle, you're going into the chicane, it's a bit marginal of whether they're going to lose a position. Oscar will now back out of it and protect the position of Lando so he doesn't end up behind his rivals. I'm guessing strategically, it's a one-stop race normally here. If there's one magic lap where the strategy counts, you'll favor Lando. But what I think I don't fully understand is if we get to the final lap of the race, Oscar's in the lead, Lando's in a slipstream, you're very happy looking for a McLaren 1-2. Do you swap the positions on the line?
Well, first of all, I think you've made already a good summary with what we will do. Definitely, exactly. Definitely, definitely, we don't want to have situations like Monza when there's a close strategic call. Let's say it would fall more naturally at Lando's advantage. But the situation you mentioned at the end, I would approach it by saying that we do want to win. We do want to win both championships, but we do want to win in the right way. And for me, the right way is looking at what our values are. As a team, with first value, of course, the team interest comes first, but then we also want to be a sportsman-like team. For sportsmanship is important for us. Fairness to both drivers is important for us. Cohesion as we move into the future is important for us. Then the question that we have definitely addressed in our conversation with Lando and Oscar is, in that situation, would you, Lando, want to have a swap? And the interesting thing is that Lando says, I want to win on track. I don't want to have a title because it came through systematic concessions, because this would negate our values. And interestingly, these values are the same as Lando and the same as Oscar. Obviously, Formula One is very complex. Scenarios never unfold exactly as simple as we figure out, because in the case you said, what if Lando is a lot faster? For instance, this creates another variation of the same scenario. We will have good conversation over the weekend. We will assess the situation on Saturday evening. We will do it on Sunday, and then we make the calls at the pit wall. But our principles remain the beacon in the interpretation of these situations.
I'm sorry for stopping this, but I'm just gonna say two words. What Stella just said is that when that comes in the situation when Piastri is first and Norris is second, then when they swap places, and Norris has just said to their engineers and team principal, I don't want to win a championship where tomorrow they will say in the news that Oscar or my team gave me the championship, and I want to win it fair and square, not to give it to me like a gift, but win it with all my merits. That's it.
So what I'm reading right now is that if it happened here in Baku, like in Monza, they seem similar pace. Oscar would be free to win the race. But I think back to Brazil, 2007, you were at Ferrari at the time. Kimi and Felipe Massa, you swapped them, and Kimi won the title by a point. I guess if you get to Abu Dhabi in that scenario, it's logical for Lando, even if it, as I say, contradicts, as you say, the values and the sporting way. But ultimately, in a race like Abu Dhabi, we're logical to swap at that point.
But
right?
I think you're using the right word. It's logical, or if you want, is consistent. In that case, I think with our principles as well, because a concession from a driver ultimately does lead you to win the championship, and I think this would make sense for Oscar as well. And then it's fair to Oscar as well. So I think it does comply with the principles.
Because it could be the other way next year.
It could be the other way next year, but also it's 8 races to go. Oscar may have a fair opinion and say, hey, but I'm still mathematically in condition to win the championship. So there's a degree of complexity. And I think what we need to try and avoid is to try always to oversimplify things, just because this leads to a very nice story or a very, very nice opinion for a debate. But we need to, when you run a team in particular, you need to acknowledge that there's a degree of complexity, and sometimes you have to embrace complexity, because otherwise you may go against your own principles.
It's clear that you have the respect of both your drivers, and fairness is key here. Is there any concern, though, that this is going to alter the way Oscar's approaches races, his mindset generally? Is he going to feel slightly undermined by this tweak, if you like?
Well, I think that's definitely something that we should question ourselves, and this is also why we have multiple conversations with the drivers. Like I'm not achieve this kind of conclusion like I'm trying to explain just through my own reflections. It's been multiple conversations with Lando and Oscar because we need to make sure that the plan is a plan that everyone thinks it's fair. It's not ideal, but it's not ideal when you have 2 cars and 2 drivers that can win races and there's only one winner. Like, that's not ideal by definition, but you definitely, as a team in particular, you have to do your best to make sure that everyone buys into the approach of the team. And for me, I'm very proud of both Oscar and Lando, because in the fact that it's not ideal, like they both would like to win, they both understand that now is the time to play our part. And if there's a need to help Lando, Oscar will do it, and vice versa.
It's funny, isn't it? Because this, I suppose, we've seen many times in Formula One, and we will see many times again. But it's a good problem to have when it's your problem to have. Well, it means you're competitive.
It's a problem that it caused ourselves by the team in particular doing a good job in developing the car, by employing a driver like Oscar, who is another number 1 driver. Like, we wanted, we work very hard to have this kind of problem. Now we try and face it in the best way we can, but I think it's important that we approach it in a fair and sportsman-like way.
I think my mission is to find a different word than problem Because it's not a problem. It's a great situation to be in.
It's a challenge.
Challenge.
There
There we go.
Okay.
A
Let's call it
managerial challenge, which we don't envy, but you're clearly managing very well indeed. Thank you very much for your
Okay.
time.
Thank you very much.
Damn. He was using his words really, really nice. He was like prepared for these kind of questions. Stella is really a mastermind when it comes to answer questions, and he's like all cool and smooth, and you know, all of those things. But clearly, he has a headache with all this going on inside the team. And I don't know, like he cannot end this war. This is a clear war, you know, like we have two, and he says it all the time, we have two number one drivers. You cannot have two number one drivers on your team, man. There is no way you can have two number one drivers in your team that's gonna reflect bad. You can have number one, number two, but if the number two is doing good, then you can swap, you know, because number two is doing good, number one is not doing good. But you always have to have a number one, number two drivers on your team, because then you'll have these kind of conflicts, or as they call it, a challenge, you know. But Stella said that they have worked so hard to employ Oscar Piastri on their team, to have Oscar Piastri as their driver. That's why they don't pronounce it as like Oscar is number two and Lando is number one, you know. But he explained everything really beautiful. I don't want to mess around on those topics, but it was really interesting thing to be able to listen the answers of too much questions that we had over a couple of weeks. And this is gonna be a really interesting race. Really interesting race. I'm eager and I'm waiting for it. Nevertheless, thank you everyone for watching this video with us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. If you have something to add up, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.